Here's your host, Chief Sales Officer, David Mulham.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back, VIPs. You just experienced Jay Shetty's extraordinary keynote presentation on resilience and mental strength. And if you'd like to go back and watch that keynote, it will be available on demand for 30 days for all of you since you are registered as VIP. But right now, this is your VIP exclusive opportunity to engage with one of the most motivating thought leaders. Be sure to send Jay your questions in the live chat below. We will get to as many of them as we can. And once again, here is number one, New York Times best-selling author, award-winning storyteller, and now USANA family member, Jay Shetty. Hey, Jay, welcome back.
Hey, David, so wonderful to be back. And as you can see, I've changed my location. I thought it was apt for the VIP conversation. And also my light was going down here in LA, so I've moved over to my studio. So if anyone thinks I'm in a different place, I've just walked across my home.
Well, it's wonderful to have you back with us, and this great opportunity for us to get some questions which are coming in. And while those questions are coming in, I've got a couple of my own, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite sections in your book explains Dharma, which I've read a lot about, but I'd really like for you, if you can expound on that concept and how do we figure out what our Dharma is?
Absolutely. Great question. Dharma is an old Sanskrit word, an ancient word from the language called Sanskrit. And what Dharma means is many different things if we look at it in English, but one of my favorite definitions is eternal purpose. And what is an eternal purpose? An eternal purpose is something that you are uniquely positioned to do. And the way we discover our Dharma, or what Dharma is to find the synergy or the crossover between our passions, our expertise, and our compassion, our service. So when you find your passion, what you enjoy doing, what you're good at, your expertise, what you have strengths in and abilities in, and then you serve with that. So when we serve with our passions, they become a purpose or a dharma. And so what we're always trying to do is, well, if this is what I'm good at and this is what I enjoy, how can I use that to improve the lives of other people? As soon as we use it to improve other people's lives, impact people positively, it becomes a dharma. And I speak about that in chapter 5 of my book in depth. We even have a 20-question questionnaire in there to help people actually find their dharma.
Yeah, it's a really cool part of the book. Thank you. I think you and our CEO, Kevin Guest, are cut from the same mold almost. He stresses the importance of living with intention. And so what does it mean to you to live intentionally?
We definitely agree on that one. I really believe that every decision we make has to be conscious and intentional. What that means is that there has to be a clear reason behind it. Now, you may say, well, where's the room for spontaneity? Where's the room for good energy? The truth is that you can even be intentional about that. When you're intentional about your life, you're conscious of what food am I taking in? What media am I consuming? Who am I going to spend time with? Where do we choose to spend time? When am I going to spend time with this person? And why am I spending time with them? When you're actually internally asking yourself those questions of what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? When am I going to do it? Who am I going to do it with? And why am I going to do it? You're starting to live an intentional life. The reason and the benefit for this is that when you do something with a clear intention, you're more likely to set the right expectation. When you're unclear about your intention, when you're unclear about what you actually want to gain and what you're bringing to the table, often we set unrealistic and false expectations that end up letting us down. I'll give you an example in the business space and your career space to make sense of that. When I set out to write my book, Think Like a Monk, I was not thinking about it becoming a New York Times bestselling book, let alone a #1 New York Times bestselling book. I was thinking about writing the best possible book I could. My intention was simply to write a book that would really help people understand their habits, understand their mind, and make a difference in their life. Now, as soon as the book was complete, I could then shift all my energy to making sure that people were aware that this book exists. At that point, I was completely focused on making sure that we could make everyone know that this book was available. Notice how we're intentionally focusing on the quality and the process and being present with the task at hand, rather than letting the mind just get lost in the result and losing sight of the process.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. And in your keynote, you talked about rejection, and something many of us struggle with in dealing with rejection and relationships in general is forgiveness. And it can eat us alive to hold onto resentment. So we tend to think of forgiveness as an all or nothing prospect, yet you say forgiveness has distinct levels. And so what are they and how are they different? Just to put you on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the forgiveness is difficult when we see it as black or white. When we see the answer as being, I either forgive them or I hate them, right? Like that's literally the two decisions that we're always in. We either think we hate this person and we hate what they did to us, or we hate what happened, or we forgive them. When you look at it in that way, it becomes very difficult to start the journey towards forgiveness. And so the different levels of forgiveness, the first level is revenge. Most people don't want forgiveness, they just want revenge. They want the other person to feel the pain that they felt. They want the other person to have a negative experience. That's the first step. The next step in forgiveness is known as transactional forgiveness. This is forgiveness where it's like, well, if you say sorry, then I'll forgive you. If you ask if you tell me that you feel bad about what you did, then I'll say sorry. That's another stage of forgiveness. The third stage of forgiveness is forgiveness where it's based on the fact that you realize you no longer want that pain. You no longer want to carry it around. And you forgive because of that. And then the fourth and final is the unconditional forgiveness that we have, which is almost like that godlike forgiveness that we all aspire for, but seems too far away. Looking at forgiveness as these steps allows us to take one step at a time when we feel ready, as opposed to thinking like we need to jump and leapfrog to this high state of forgiveness, which can actually feel quite intimidating and quite alien and intangible for us. It's so much better to start where you are with the principles that you have and the level of forgiveness that you have. But the one thing we have to remember about forgiveness is that it's so much more for us. It's so much more for our own hearts, our own emotions, and our own well-being, because carrying around bitterness, carrying around pain, and carrying around stress, the Buddha would say, is like carrying hot coal in your hand, thinking you're going to throw it at someone else, but you burn your hand in the process. That's literally how deeply it can affect you. And so if you're thinking someone doesn't deserve your forgiveness, remember you do. And that's why you're starting that journey and process.
You also talk about detachment as a way to help with our emotions. And many of us would look at that and say, okay, we have to stop caring about what's going on, but that's not the point of detachment as it pertains to dealing with emotion, is it?
No, not at all. That's a really good point, David. And one of the biggest mistakes we make is we think that not thinking about something or not dealing with something or not talking about something makes it go away. And we all know that's not true. Whether it's a small ache in your back or whether it's something in your house that you haven't dealt with for a lot of months or a lot of years. I can see a lot of people nodding right now going, oh, I know that part in my home that still needs fixing and hasn't been sorted yet. If you avoid something and you don't talk about it and you don't think about it, it doesn't go away. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the first thing we have to do is accept and acknowledge the pain, accept and acknowledge the challenge and the issue. We have to recognize it. We have to accept it. We have to look at it right in the face and say, okay, I see you. I see that you're there. I see that this is a challenge for me. The next thing we need to do is realize that we have a choice. You can feel anxiety, but choose clarity. You can feel pressure and pain and stress, but choose action and focus. We have to realize that we can feel one thing, but take action on something else. So after we accept, we have to move into action, and actually accepting helps us move into action correctly. Because just as there's something wrong in your house or something wrong with your body or how you're feeling, when you accept that it's there, you start to take action. You may go see a doctor, you may get someone to come into your home and fix that element. You start actually moving towards a solution. When we choose not to accept something, we actually can't take action. And that's where detachment comes from. Detachment comes first by accepting what's going on and then dealing with it, rather than trying to avoid it and disconnect from it.
Thank you, mate. That's great. And let's take some video questions. We've got some video questions that have come in from our distributors in the Asia Pacific region. And up first, my fellow Australian, wonderful, wonderful associate, Gemma Lee.
Hey USANA family, it's Gemma from Australia. I wish I could be with you in AP convention this year. Jay, thanks for answering this question. 2020 was a challenging year for all of us, and I'd love to hear what your monk mindset was that got you through a challenging year. We all face challenges, but what are your top 3 tips to getting through challenges when your mind is taking you everywhere else?
Gemma, that's a great question, and thank you so much for asking it. And the first thing I'd say about the monk mindset is that a lot of us look for happiness in life. We always want to be happy. And our quest for happiness is often met with a dead-end road. Because when things like last year happen, you struggle to find happiness in those times, right? I'm sure there were very few times that we may have felt happy in 2020. But one of the things that I find about the search for happiness is that you can't find happiness in every situation, but you can find meaning in every situation. You can find purpose in every situation. You can find service in every situation. So the monk mindset is to not seek happiness in the way we all think of happiness and being joyful and, you know, full of like brightness, like that kind of happy kind of movie feeling of happiness. When we actually seek out purpose and meaning and service, we truly experience happiness here rather than up here. And so the monk mindset is always, in times of challenge or times of stress, look for purpose, look for meaning, look for service, because then you will always find it and you will always know what you're meant to do. You asked for 3 mindsets. That's the first one. The second one, Gemma, is to not judge yourself and not criticize yourself. The monk mindset is a mindset of non-judgment. It's so easy, and so many people last year were judging themselves. Everyone expected themselves in the pandemic, by the way, which no one expected. People were expecting themselves in a pandemic to be the perfect person, the perfect parent, the perfect partner. It's hard. I mean, first of all, perfection's impossible, but it's hard enough to be perfect when there isn't a pandemic. But to expect ourselves in a pandemic to get everything perfect, it's completely insane. And so allowing ourselves to just not judge ourselves, to not criticize ourselves, to give ourselves the space to make mistakes and figure things out and try our best and not really put that pressure on ourselves. Last year, you know, everyone lost something and some people lost someone, and you at that sort of a time, you don't want to judge yourself. So you want to let go of that self-judgment. And the third monk mindset that I'd say, which is really, really important at that time, or in a time that you're mentioning, is the idea of helping others. Being a change agent in the lives of others in whatever way you can. I realized that what I could do was teach mindfulness and meditation. So I was teaching meditations on Instagram every day. I was doing meditation private sessions for hospitals and nurses and doctors, because that's what I could do. I couldn't actually be there on the front lines. I'm not skilled in that way. Finding out the tiniest thing you can do, whether it's calling someone up or helping someone, it always makes you feel a part of the solution. And I think that's the most important thing. At difficult times, if you don't feel like you're part of the solution, all you see is the problem. But when you feel like you're helping, even if you're helping a little bit, you start to see the good. You start to see the people that are making a difference. I hope that answers your question, Gemma. And thanks so much for asking it.
Thanks, mate. Next is a really dear friend and a great leader from the Philippines, Jack Candido from the Philippines.
Hi, Jack Candido from the Philippines, and this is my question. What is your best advice for younger generation right now, especially those who venture into entrepreneurship?
Jack, that's a great question. The best piece of advice that I can give is try and solve a real problem. Try and solve a real problem. When you're getting into entrepreneurship, one of the biggest mistakes is to start a business that sounds like a good idea, that feels like it's going to make lots of money, that feels like it's, you know, an exciting area, or it's something that's trending right now, whether it's NFTs or, you know, whatever it may be in the marketplace at the time. And really, entrepreneurship comes from solving a problem. You know, the best companies in the world are solving big problems, and that's why we use them. And so you have to really, really focus in on, am I solving a problem? What is the problem? Do I understand it? And are we really solving this problem? When you approach it from that genuine place, you get more confidence in what you're creating, and you feel much more empowered about your business and your company. The second piece of advice I'd give is your personal brand matters hugely. I was taught this lesson in 2014 by one of my mentors in London named Thomas Power. And he really exposed me to this idea of having the ability to reach out to anyone and everyone, having the ability to ask questions to the best minds on the planet, and noticing how the more your personal brand grew, the more you were able to actually take part in conversations and learn and grow. So the idea of building a personal brand wasn't to be famous or have followers or have views. That isn't, it's got messed up today and mixed up today. The actual perspective around having a personal brand was so that you could learn more, so that you could gain access to places and people that could help you understand more things and understand business and entrepreneurship more deeply. So I would not ignore your personal brand. And the third and final tip I'd give for entrepreneurship is be ready for the ride. It's tough. It's hard work. It is sleepless nights, lots of busy hours. It's lots of hard work. It's intense. It's hectic. Be ready for the ride and don't lose your health and don't burn out in the process. Create a good health regimen, create a good mental health regimen so that in your journey, you can actually be protected and sustainable. There are far too many entrepreneurs that achieve their material goals, but ruin their emotional health in the process. And you can avoid that if you are as motivated about your mental health as you are about your business.
Thank you, Jay. I love that about creating solutions, solving problems, which is a big space of all of these VIPs on this part of the program, you know, who do that every day in their USANA businesses. They're about presenting really great health direction for people in their lives and in their businesses. Here's a great question from Taiwan.
亲爱的 Jay Shetty 你好，我是来自台湾的荣誉执行6星钻石董事龚敬纯，谢谢你出版了这一本书，受益良多。我今天有一个问题想请教你，如何引导伙伴放下自我局限的框架，发挥潜能，善用时间？谢谢。
Thank you so much for reading my book. It means the world to me. I really, really appreciate it. When it comes to your partners realizing their potential, and when it comes to your partners understanding how to make progress, you do it by introducing them to the people, the places, and the ideas that motivate them. Our partners, our colleagues, our friends are not going to be motivated necessarily by the same things that we watch or the same things that we read. They might be, but they might not be also. And the best leaders are able to connect people with what connects with them. So often we try to connect people with what connects with us, and we should try that. But if that doesn't work, we shouldn't lose hope. There are so many different paths people can take. The best thing is to do is to understand someone's needs, interests, and concerns. And when you deeply understand their psychology, you can introduce them to the ideators, the thinkers that help them understand the message. Often I'll ask the same question to every single one of my podcast guests. I'll literally ask them the same question. The reason I do that is because sometimes you need to hear a different answer to the same question from different people for the point to register and for it to hit. So some people may need to hear it from a CEO, some people may need to hear it from an actor, some people may need to hear it from a musician or an author or a thought leader. The point is we all need to hear messages from different faces, different voices. And as a leader, your role is to understand who your partner, your colleague, your friend, your husband, your wife, whoever it may be, who they'll be inspired by.
Thank you, mate. We've got, we are bumping around all over the Asia Pacific at the moment.
Amazing.
A fun question from Joy and Kevin in Thailand.
Hi, Mr. Jay Shetty. I'm Kevin.
I'm Joy from Thailand.
The questions that we would like to ask you is, in this fast-changing, competitive, and challenging world, if you could have 3 wishes, what would they be? Thank you.
Wow. Wow, Kevin and
that.
Joy, that's an amazing question. What would be my wishes? I think my first wish would be that each and every person realized their passion and their potential and lived according to their purpose. That they stopped wasting time trying to compete with everyone else. They stopped wasting time trying to be like everyone else, and they were just themselves. Because I think that's what the world needs, more people who are living in their purpose and aligned with their passion and their strength. So that would be my first wish. The second wish that I would have is that everyone acted only for the benefit of other people, that businesses were started to serve others, that our intention was always to help others. Imagine if everyone in the world was trying to help someone, how quickly we would eradicate so many of the issues and challenges that we see in the world today. So that would be my second wish. And my third wish would be that people, even if they couldn't see eye to eye, even if they couldn't completely love each other, which would be an amazing wish, my wish would be that people would learn to respect each other, that we would learn to accept and acknowledge our differences, that we would learn to recognize that difference doesn't mean better or worse. And if we were able to do that and accept the beautiful diversity of this world, then I think those would be 3 really special wishes.
Wonderful, mate. I think we're speaking, you and I were speaking the other day, and there's a 4th wish for you to have a surfing lesson, which I'm very happy to give you that when you make it here.
Absolutely.
To Bondi in Australia. That'll be fun. Hey, Sharon from Singapore has the next question.
Hi Jay, my name is Sharon and I'm so stoked to be given a chance to do this, for I've been a long-time fan of yours. And today, a question in my mind that I would like to ask would be, how do you get into the best version of yourself every single day and to overcome negative thoughts that come your way during the day? Looking forward to your sharing. Thank you.
Sharon, that's a great question. And the answer is a technique that I call spot, stop, swap. And so how this works is we have a certain dialogue, an inner dialogue in our mind that says certain things every day that can be negative. So things like, you're not good enough. Things like, oh, look at what he or she's doing. Things like, oh, you're not smart enough. You don't have this down. You don't understand this, right? We all have this negative, critical inner talk. So the first thing we have to do is we have to spot, where does that happen? When does it happen? How does it happen? What are we doing when it happens? You may find that when you're scrolling on social media, that's when you're feeling the most envious or jealous. You may find that when you're reading the news, that's when you feel the most negativity. The first thing you have to do is spot, where do those negative thoughts come from? What are you doing that triggers those negative thoughts? The second thing you want to do is stop. You don't want to continue that pattern. You want to stop and accept yourself. I notice this pattern. I see where it's coming from. I don't want to continue this. If you don't have that moment of pause, if you don't have that moment of reflection, the pattern just continues. You have to break the pattern. And we break the pattern when we allow ourselves to pause, reflect, and stop and say, I'm ready to break this pattern. You have to actually admit it to yourself, because otherwise the patterns just continue one after the other. And the third and final step is to swap. You want to swap that inner critic, that negative self-talk, for self-esteem talk. You want to switch that for not I am good enough and lying to yourself, but saying, oh, I'll be good enough when I build that skill. Oh, if I learn that, then I'll be able to take on this challenge. So you want to switch that for coaching and guiding yourself. So next time you have a negative self-talk or a negative thought, I want you to focus on spot, stop, swap.
I love that, coaching and guiding yourself. That's a skill that's worth working on. Ms. Suk from Korea has a question I think many of us could benefit from your answer.
안녕하세요. 유사나 코리아 빌더 송미숙입니다. 저는 집 밖에 사는 사람들에게 너무나 친절한데 집에만 오면 가족이 가장 편하다는 이유로 해서는 안 될 말들로 상처를 주곤 합니다. 한결같은 모습과 평정심을 유지하려면 어떻게 하는 게 좋을까요?
Nisuk, wonderful question. It's hard, isn't it? We're always tough on the people that are closest to us. And I often talk about this, how sometimes it's the people that you love the most that you don't treat with that same level of respect and others. And it's very easy because you know they love you and they'll get on with it and they'll move on and they'll still love you. I've made that mistake many times. I still make that mistake. It's something we all go through. So thank you, Nisuk, for asking that question. I think the thing that I always remember is realizing that you don't know when the last time you speak to someone is. I think that's the only way to truly give your mind perspective and to deal with everyone with the love and the kindness, knowing that if that was the last time you spoke to them, how much love you'd feel with it, how much joy you'd bring to that moment, how much amazing energy you'd bring to that day. And when you deal with your loved ones in that way, you always live a life of no regrets. You allow yourself to live a really fulfilling life because you know that you're saying exactly what you feel. You know that that person knows that you love them, and that starts building a really beautiful bond. So that's the number one technique that I've used in that space.
That's so cool, mate. Thank you. I can't believe we're almost at the end of our time. We've got just a few minutes. I wanted to just get to a couple of live chat from Leo from Indonesia is asking about anxiety. What is a simple practice that can help us calm down when we start to feel anxiety ramping up? I'm going to ask you for some short, sharp responses. That'd be great.
Yeah, there's a method and technique that psychologists use called the 5-4-3-2-1 method. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can taste, and 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can taste, and 1 thing you can smell. When you do that, you get grounded into the present moment again. So 5-4-3-2-1 method, you can Google it and you'll find the answer.
Awesome, thank you. Carol, one of our distributors from Hong Kong asks, in your book, you talk about not judging the moment. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is don't label a moment as good or bad, because then you stop it from growing into something else. If something good happens, we go, oh my God, this is the best thing that ever happened. And then if it goes, we're like, oh no, that's the worst thing that ever happened. And so we label moments, or like if something bad happens, we're like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing. But actually that could turn into a blessing. So gifts can turn into curses and curses can turn into gifts. And if you don't label the moment, you just allow it to be, you allow a moment to become better than it could have ever been. So that's what it means to not judge the moment.
Thank you. And our very last question for today is from Carmen in Malaysia. She'd like to know, what are the biggest things we tend to get wrong about relationships?
So the number one is we think that relationships are about enjoyment, but actually they're about education, and the enjoyment is in the education. So relationships are there to teach us something. They're there for us to grow. They're there for us to learn. They're not just there for us to have fun. The fun is in the learning. The fun happens when you grow. And so that's one of the biggest mistakes we make in relationships. Another huge mistake we make in relationships is that we think our way is the right way. The truth is our way is just one way, and our parents, the way they've raised us and our upbringing forms our beliefs and values. And the person that we're in a relationship with has their own beliefs and backgrounds and values. And so there's just a clash of 2 different upbringings. We find it strange when 2 minds don't match, but it actually makes more sense that 2 minds with 2 different backgrounds, with 2 different sets of parents, with 2 different walks of life, with 2 different schools, it's likely that they won't match. And so recognizing that your way isn't the right way, your way is just another way, is a really, really helpful thing and a mistake that we often make in relationships.
Thank you, mate. I wish we could just keep going and going and going, but our
Me
time's
too.
up. I want to thank everyone for their very insightful questions. And Jay, this was an exhilarating mental marathon. I just want to thank you so much for being here and now officially part of our USANA family.
Thank you so much, David. I'm so happy to be a part of the family. It means the world to me. And thank you for those phenomenal questions. It was amazing to answer them from all over the world and hear all of you speak your beautiful languages as well. It was truly special. Thank you so much, David.
And thanks for being with us. We look forward to having you join us live next time. We'll be able to organize that on stage somewhere around the world. Thank you so much, Jay.
Thank you. That was
Stick
amazing.
around, everyone. Our Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Rob Sinnott, is taking you behind the scenes to the Research and Development Lab for a sneak peek at USANA's future. But for me, it's bye for now.
This has been a VIP access session